Good morning, everybody. Andrew Scheer and Maxime Bernier are tweeting about Quebec, and Andrew Scheer is courting Quebec votes, and Maxime Bernier is criticizing Andrew Scheer. So we're going to look at that, and we're going to look at a very unofficial, very biased poll, and some more. So first, Andrew Scheer. Andrew Scheer says, quote, "We are listening to Quebecers, and this first step of the unveiling of our political offer is a clear sign. We will work with the province on a single tax return, immigration, and stopping wastewater dumping." Get the details here, and there's a Facebook link. And I'm not going to show this video. It's in French. There are English subtitles, and it's worth the watch. The link is in the description. Feel free to check it out yourself. But I haven't... it's not the right venue for me to play this video. I've watched this video, but it's not the right venue for me to play it. We're going to look at a lot of the same information that's reported in, like that he says in the video, in this tweet and the article ahead. So stay with me. Okay, Global Montreal says Conservative leader Andrew Scheer is promising to give Quebec more autonomy over immigration if he is elected Prime Minister. And we look at the article. It says Andrew Scheer promises Quebec more autonomy on immigration. Quebec will be given more autonomy over immigration if the federal Conservatives win October's election, party leader Andrew Scheer promised Monday. But he wouldn't say whether he agrees that Quebec alone should determine how many immigrants it receives. I scroll down. Trudeau said that he's willing to continue discussions with Legault over his immigration demands, but he stresses his priority is to ensure Quebec has enough workers to fill widespread labor shortages across the province. That's the way in. There's so many people there's so many jobs available, we need to import people because there's so many jobs. Okay, back to the article. Trudeau has had months to do something about immigration. And what I'm saying is that come October, when I sit down with Mr. Legault, we will actually have actions and not just words, not just meetings for the sake of meetings, Scheer told reporters. Immigration has become a particularly sensitive topic in Quebec since 2017, when an influx of asylum seekers entering the province illegally from the United States began. Last year alone, 18,500 out of 19,419, or 95%, of RCMP interceptions of migrants crossing between official ports of entry occurred in Quebec. Scheer said Canadians' concerns over immigration, quote, stem from the fact this government has completely lost control of the immigration file. We see a situation in Quebec where over 30,000 people have entered Canada illegally, and the government, Justin Trudeau, has literally done nothing to stop that. He's naming Justin Trudeau here because people aren't sure when you say the government. That's a big kind of scary cloud, it's kind of, not sure. So Scheer's naming Trudeau here, which is, I like that. Okay, back to the article. Quebec controls roughly 70% of immigrants who settle in the province every year, all in the economic migrant category. The remaining 30% arrive through family reunification system or as refugees, two categories controlled by the federal government. Legault has said that he wants to reduce by 20% of the number of immigrants in all three categories. Scheer on Monday declined to say whether he thinks Quebec should control all three categories of immigration to the province. Quote, "I think if you have the right approach, ... you don't need to have one party and one level dictating to the other." And yesterday I said the ... could have anything in there, you yada yada over whatever, and you don't yada yada over... right? And yada yada, we had breakfast, and I totally got the yada right. I said yada yesterday, so thank you, Mr. Commenter. Made me laugh. But this is Scheer's approach, okay? He dodges the question by saying, I'm sure we can find common ground. I think if you have the right approach, you don't need to have one party and one level dictating to the other. Watch for that in the next article we read about Scheer. Here's Maxime Bernier talking, though. He says, quote, "Scheer makes vague promises of autonomy to Quebec over immigration, but refuses to say if he agrees with a reduction in the number of immigrants demanded by François Legault." And he's pointing at, I propose to lower the number. Oh, he says, I propose to lower the number of immigrants for Quebec and for all of Canada. So there you go. That's a direct plea to voters who Mr. Scheer's tap dance isn't working on, right? Here's another article. And note, again, this is CBC Canadian News, I think. I'm not sure if this is the real one. Honestly, because there's so many, there are so many fake accounts. I don't want to say like this is the CBC Canada. It says CBC Canada, so it looks pretty legit to me. But look at the picture they're using, right? And so anyway, Andrew Scheer courts Quebec with immigration offer, but avoids pipeline talk. And so the series we looked at was from yesterday. This series is from today. Well, Maxime Bernier and Scheer's are from today. It's printed yesterday at 1:30 in the afternoon. It says, Andrew Scheer courts Quebec with immigration offer but avoids pipeline talk. It says Conservative leader Andrew Scheer attempted to revive his party's fortunes in Quebec on Monday by declaring his openness to the province's provincial government's demands for immigration reforms. But Scheer avoided discussing his support for a controversial oil pipeline that would run through Quebec. Premier Francois Legault said last month such a pipeline wouldn't be socially acceptable in the province. Scheer supports revisiting TransCanada's Energy East project, which would have carried Alberta crude across the country to refineries and export terminals in New Brunswick. And I scroll down. Speaking in Montreal, Scheer suggested that some common ground could be found between Legault's opposition to the project and the federal Conservatives' desire to see it go ahead. Quote, I'm confident that we can work in a collaborative way with the government of Quebec to address some of the legitimate concerns, while at the same time ensuring that we get big national energy projects built to become self-sufficient when it comes to energy in our country, he told reporters. Asked whether he agreed with Legault's statement that there is no social acceptability for a new pipeline, Scheer said only that Quebecers would support efforts to reduce oil imports from foreign countries. Okay, so there's the slant. That's how you sell it to the Quebec people who are climate conscious, let's just say. Do you worry about the climate, or do you worry about buying Saudi oil that has no controls, right? Like, which one's better? We have to make a choice. We can't choose none. So you sell it that way, which I like. But I think it's interesting, again, where he says, my plan is to be a very good negotiator with the provinces. That's my plan. And we're watching Trudeau do that to end the end of pipelines in Canada and $12 oil in Canada, right? That's the end. Here's Maxime Bernier's response to that article. You can see it's the same article. All of the links are in the description. And he says, quote, Scheer didn't specify what powers a Conservative government would transfer to Quebec. He also remained vague about whether he supported the CAQ's plan to reduce by more than 20% the number of immigrants Quebec accepts annually. Vague, centrist, pragmatic. And this one is regarding the pipelines. He says, speaking in Montreal, Tory leader ducks question on his support for Energy East. And all caps, he says, can you trust this guy to get it done? And, well, here's the thing. Here's a very biased poll that I was telling you about. The Conservative Party has a massive base, a huge infrastructure. They're well known. The likelihood of them winning the most seats or a majority of seats for a majority government is I'm not going to say very high, because the polls in Quebec show them less than 15%, and the polls in Ontario, I think they've got a lot of seats to pick up in Ontario. But if you look at this poll, it says 63, and the poll is done by @federalpolls, so they're just a Twitter handle as far as I know. I don't know if they've got any kind of legitimacy. I haven't looked into them, but they say, hey, CBC, CTV, and Global News, let's stop with the phone banks and get real data from all engaged Canadians. If an election were held today, who would you support? And 63% say the CPC, 32% say the People's Party, 3% say the Liberal Party, and 2% support the NDP or Democrats. Greens. So interesting. There's 2 days left. There's 2,300 votes had. Link is in the description. Feel free to join in. This is not scientific by any stretch of the imagination, but there is such a thing as people rejecting outright a party, and I'm not sure that the Liberals are really polling at 3%, but I watched what happened in Ontario last year, 2018, with Kathleen Wynne have to concede the election, I think 2 weeks to go. There was no way Andrea Horwath was going to win the premiership of Ontario, and everybody knew it except for the newspapers, who continually reported that there was maybe a chance. So in that kind of climate, and I think that Justin Trudeau is as disliked as Kathleen Wynne. I really do. And maybe there are pockets of people who like him, or people he's imported have enough votes to turn a couple of key ridings. But my whole premise here is that the amount of people who like and support the Liberals is less total. And what I'm talking about by Liberals is the far left. They've gone so far left. They're further left than the NDP. And the NDP is even further left, right? That only about 20% of people can support outright communism. And I think that's where we're at. And I think people see that. And this poll reflects that. It's a biased poll. I know it's a biased poll. You know it's a biased poll. But maybe, the NDP made the official opposition to the Conservatives one election ago, and now they're decimated. The Liberal Party came from third place to a strong majority across Canada, despite the leader of the Liberal Party saying budgets balance themselves and forgetting Alberta. I mean, literally forgetting Alberta, and saying that, basically saying that he was going to kill energy in Canada. He won, right? So crazy, unlikely things can happen. And Maxime Bernier has made $300,000 in 3 days because Canadians are sick and tired of the garbage from their government. All of that said, the Conservative Party has a strong, strong base, a huge infrastructure. It could be a CPC government with a PPC opposition. That's what we could be looking at. I mean, maybe not. We're still 10 months out, right? But who knows? Okay, thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful day, and check out the peoplespartyofcanada.ca. You might want to have Maxime Bernier be your prime minister come October 2019. Thanks for watching.